of severe weather to the National Weather Service while following all local, state, and CDC guidelines.
That's a hand crank dynamo.
Please relay any information about
Holding down on the tuning buttons will set you into scan. There you go. So just so you know, AM radio does come in a bit better towards sunset, a little after sunset. Would be a good time to test this. Another feature on here is the SOS button. It's going to be on. I'm not sure you'll use that, but you might get somebody's attention. And then up here, you have the weather alert button. And that takes you to 162.4. And that can't be changed, but the instructions do say that it continues to scan the weather channels for alerts. So right now there are no known alerts. Hit that, exit out. Band button, obviously change there. And then you've got your volume button here. Close up on the bottle opener and the charging ports. The USB there is for external devices. I believe that's the micro USB right there. Micro USB is for charging the device itself, and then you've got a headphone port. This thing cannot turn into an auxiliary speaker, so don't try to pipe music into it. It won't work. But there you go. Nice little hand crank little slot there. This little unit produced by Radioddity, the NW3 on their website, looks just like this. It's a pretty handy little emergency weather radio. It's got weather channels, 7 out of 10 weather channels in the United States anyway, AM, FM radio. It's got hand crank dynamo, which you just saw, which actually is pretty cool. It can give you about 5 minutes of 1 minute of cranking. It's 5 minutes of radio or 30 minutes of this nice bright flashlight, which is actually pretty good flashlight in the dark. So the onboard battery can be charged fully to 2,000 milliamp hours. Now, it does stop charging another device when that 2,000 milliamp hours gets down to about 50%. So if you're using this to charge your phone, then you're only going to get a little bit of a charge, but that is going to help you out in 2 ways. It's going to keep this open for communication, incoming communication. You'll be able to get that FM radio, that weather radio in an emergency, and you'll still have a charge in your phone. So that'll help. And you can produce more energy by simply cranking this. The solar power unit on the top generates a small amount of solar energy. Now, it is pretty impressive that this thing has so many sources, but I wouldn't rely on that for your primary source. It will help top off. So that being said, if it is in a go bag, take it out of the go bag, strap to the top so this can get the sun, so it's constantly getting some energy. Thirdly, you can also power it with AAAs. Now the AAAs don't contribute to charging an external device, and the AAAs do not contribute to charging the lithium-ion 2,000 milliamp hour battery. So they are strictly there for operating the radio or the flashlight. That is very handy. Being an emergency radio, sometimes you'll have AAAs laying around, sometimes you won't, but in that case, it doesn't matter. You've got a hand crank, and you can get going pretty quickly on the news coming in from the weather service or AM or FM radio when you need it with just a little bit of cranking. So I love this concept, and I think it's really, really smart. It's also water resistant, can stand up to some rain. I've dropped this thing in the snow, and I think it does really well in holding up to exposure. I will say this little clip though, if you are in the cold elements, this will ice up if it comes into contact with some snow, because it's black, it'll absorb sunlight, and it will warm up that snow, and then it forms an ice layer, and so this clip won't work right. The other handy feature that I like here, bottle opener. That is really cool. Now to get into a couple things that I think are important to note. If this is going in a go bag, the buttons are easily depressed, so be aware of that. This is part of your 72-hour kit. The last thing you need is emergency weather coming in on a station that you can't listen to because your radio has no power. So be aware of that. And from what I understand, they are working on a fix for that in future versions, where it'll be a long press to turn it on rather than just a quick press, which will save you energy and a little bit of frustration in the future, supposing there is an emergency. Anyhow, moving on to kind of one of the next things, that charging 50% mark is a little bit frustrating at first, but promise you it is worthwhile. It is by design. It might not be what you think you want to get out of it, but it is by design to keep the radio operational and to give you a partial charge. So you'll see that there's 8 bars for the lithium-ion battery. I plugged in my phone just to see what I would do from a full charge here, and I was able to get about 30% of the battery increase on my phone and down to 50% of the battery on this thing, and it stopped charging. So expect that. That is not a weird thing. That is part of it. And then lastly, the AM reception is not so great. I decided to test it against the AM reception in my car, and the AM reception in my car, every 10 kilohertz steps, I was picking up a station or remnants from another station. But it was also coming in very clear. This didn't pick up as many stations and not quite as clearly. That being said, it is still a very worthwhile purchase. It's got a lot of value to it. The hand crank, the flashlight, the FM radio, and the weather radio. There's just a couple things about prepping here. I'm not a prepping channel. That's not really what I focus on. I do love radio and backcountry radio, so I've taken this thing with me a couple times, and being able to use it in the field is pretty handy. Just set the radio on a rock, cook some lunch, and listen to FM radio. It's awesome. But back to the prepping note, if you are in an emergency, natural disaster, for example, likely cell phones won't work. So forget about that unless you have a GPS mapping system to help you get about. AM radio will probably deliver news from afar about what might be going on in your local area. FM radio could be disabled because FM radio is local as well, for the most part. And then the weather service stations, if they are up, they will give you accurate information disseminated from the weather service and FEMA. And you can look that up and check out the references there. But they are, the weather service frequencies are designed to disseminate information in case of a disaster or a national emergency. So you will not always hear about the weather. You will hear some more stuff about their emergencies if that comes to it. So that is why I opened up with that transmission from our local weather, or NOAA, N-O-A-A, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration broadcast, talking about CDC. So very helpful information, very cool little radio. All the good stuff in here is definitely worth the $40 that you pay for one of these. The order was placed for me, and this came in about 3 days, and it was really handy. So I will put the 2 links down below. You can click on investigate, maybe purchase if you'd like from Radioddity directly or from the Amazon store that Radioddity maintains. Anyhow, thanks for joining me, and I hope this was useful information for you. It is a brilliant little radio, and I do look forward to future versions of it, but I hope you'll find the idea useful and kind of inspire you to investigate these things. Thanks a bunch. Backcountry Amateur Radio. Stay safe out there.